Saint or sinner? A successful property owner seems like a decent guy to most who know him, but what secrets does he hide?
This is about as devious as it gets.
Langford, British Columbia. Saturday, October 25th, 2003. A hiker is enjoying the scenery in the remote backwoods of Mount Wells National Park. There's a broken drainage pipe and drug paraphernalia, but deep inside, he sees something that sends chills down his spine. The body of a man. He phones the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, who soon dispatch officers to the scene. The victim has no ID, but it doesn't take long to confirm he's likely to be 36-year-old John Ruffalo.
The police have been searching for him for 5 days since his wife reported him missing after he didn't show up to work.
When they examine the body, there don't appear to be any significant injuries. However, they note bruises and other markings around each elbow.
They find needle injection sites or puncture wounds, just like you'd find with a drug addict.
Scattered around the area are syringes and aluminum foil, and these are the characteristic signs of heroin use. So it has all the appearances of an overdose.
An autopsy reveals John Ruffalo's body contains lethal levels of heroin, as well as an antidepressant called amitriptyline. John was reported missing by his wife, Ruby Ann Ruffalo, but not until the morning after he vanished.
She says John had been heading to bed after a night shift, so she left to run some errands.
Ruby Ruffalo says when she returned home, there was no sign of her husband, and she assumed he'd headed off to work.
When she learned he hadn't turned up, she realized also that $7,000 that he taped behind a filing cabinet had disappeared.
She says John had a serious drug habit and was trying to quit, like he had before, but was struggling.
Ruby also claims that he was suffering from depression, and to try and break out of it, he was heavily using antidepressants, as well as heroin.
She insists their marriage was fine, and there were no jealousies. His car had been found days earlier, mysteriously abandoned opposite a restaurant close to his home. Inside were his guard's uniform and wallet. Detectives decide to probe deeper into the couple's backgrounds.
They first met in a bar. Ruby was attractive and 11 years older. John was charismatic and dynamic.
They marry in April of 1990 and become the proud parents of a daughter. Detectives learn that the Ruffalos own 4 rental properties in the area and even rent out rooms in their own home.
They had a good business going, and one of Ruby's close friends was Vivian Kirkland, one of their tenants.
Ruby has a law degree, but she's never gotten a job as a result of it. John was a former corrections officer who had recently gotten a job as a guard for an armored truck company.
To learn more about him, detectives question his former co-workers.
They learned he worked an early morning shift on Sunday, October 19th, and he was supposed to return later to work a night shift. But his co-workers say he never showed up.
They describe him as a workaholic, and when investigators asked if he was a drug addict, they were repeatedly told no.
But it seems like John was hiding a secret from them. Authorities receive another tip, confirming he was indeed using illicit drugs.
Apparently, he was purchasing drugs from a man only known as Mr. X.
Authorities surmise that perhaps John had gone into hiding because he owed money to drug dealers. But inquiries along those lines draw a blank.
Now they need to widen the net, see what other family members have to say.
Detectives decide to reassess the Ruffalos' marriage and turn to John's mother for an insight. It appears that the couple's relationship was on the rocks. They were sleeping in separate rooms, starting to lead separate lives, not helped by John working nights. His mother tells authorities that she and her son had a long conversation earlier in the month. It was about his wife.
He was unhappy. He just didn't want to be with Ruby anymore, and he told her he wanted a divorce.
Coming up, Investigators discover John Ruffalo had a whole other side.
He was seeing a woman at work, and yet, curiously, his wife said that there were no jealousies between them.
Police in British Columbia are looking for answers in the strange death of 36-year-old John Ruffalo. They've learned that he's enjoyed numerous affairs. There was one fling that took center stage with a co-worker.
They were actively engaging at work. They were actively engaging in bed.
Investigators bring the woman in for questioning. She admits to having had an affair with John.
She tells investigators that she knew he was married, but they were in love, and they even had plans to move in with each other.
Divorce, though, was not an option. His wife refused to sign the papers.
So now investigators wonder, did Ruby want to get rid of her love rival?
They obtain a search warrant for the couple's home. The officers are determined to search every inch for any clues as to what happened to John, including the basement they rent to Ruby Ruffalo's close friend, Vivian Kirkland. In her bathroom, there's a bottle, amitriptyline, a powerful sedative. On March 4th, 2004, after a 5-month investigation, Ruby Ruffalo and Vivian Kirkland are both placed under arrest for murder. They're taken in for questioning.
Kirkland doesn't hesitate to flip. She tells investigators everything, that Ruby pressured her into buying the heroin.
Investigators develop a theory. John was served a protein shake for his breakfast, which his devious wife had doctored with a powerful sedative to render him unconscious. Then, it was just a matter of waiting for it to take effect. John becomes dizzy and falls unconscious. His evil wife's devious plan is just getting started, aided by her best friend, Vivian Kirkland. Then, one of the women injected him with a lethal dose of heroin. Kirkland admits helping to move his body, but it proves a struggle.
A local man, Robert Johnson, tells police that Ruby asked him to move something heavy. When he arrives, she tells him that her husband has died of an overdose, and he sees this body with a sheet over it, freaks out, and leaves.
The two women then put John in the car with his feet sticking out of the window, and they drive off looking for a place to dump the body.
Robert Johnson provides other key information.
He claims that Ruby contacted him about killing her husband a month before the murder. He thought she was joking, but when he found out that she wasn't, he refused.
Johnson did admit to mentioning to Ruby that he'd watched a TV show about killing someone with a hot cap. Street talk for a heroin overdose. So the clues are starting to come together.
In December 2007, Vivian Kirkland pleads guilty to a reduced charge of offering an indignity to human remains. She is sentenced to time served and 2 years probation. After years of delays, on November 18th, 2010, 54-year-old Ruby Ruffalo finally stands trial. Ruffalo's convicted of first-degree murder and in front of her sobbing daughter, sentenced to life in prison. The judge says she knows exactly why she killed John.
If John divorced Ruby, she was worried she was going to lose control of their assets and all that rental income.
So a daughter lost her father, sisters lost their brother, parents lost their son, and she's in jail now with a lot of time to think about the lives she's ruined.
Two cases, one in North Carolina, the other in British Columbia.
The first was about protecting the status quo by keeping secrets. The second was about disrupting the status quo by keeping all the money.
A dangerous pattern of desire, deceit, and destruction on Murderous Affairs.